We are in Isaiah 21. Let me put the link to the article or the notes in the chat there in case you need it. So I think what I want to do is read the passage first and then talk about the background. And I think your experience, if you haven't read through this passage and tried to, think through it before, that it actually takes several readings and a good understanding of what's going on in the background that is disclosed in other parts of the scriptures. So we'll be going there and looking at the background. We're going to read the passage first, talk about the background, kind of go through what it's about, and then reread the passage so that we can gain a good understanding of it. So I'm going to read from the NIV. I have both the NIV and the ESV up. I'm going to look at the NIV here, and I'm just going to read Isaiah 21, 1 through 10. And that's the first oracle here. So that would be oracle number 6 in the oracles in this section of Isaiah. A prophecy against the desert by the sea. Like whirlwind sweeping through the southland, an invader comes from the desert, from a land of terror. A dire vision has been shown to me. The traitor betrays, the looter takes loot. Elam attack, Media lay siege. I will bring to an end all the groaning she caused. At this my body is racked with pain. Pangs seize me. Like those of a woman in labor, I am staggered by what I hear. I am bewildered by what I see. My heart falters. Fear makes me tremble. The twilight I longed for has become a horror to me. They set the tables. They spread the rugs. They eat. They drink. Get up, you officers. Oil the shields. This is what the Lord says to me. Go post a lookout and have him report what he sees. When he sees chariots with teams of horses, riders on donkeys, or riders on camels, let him be alert, fully alert. And the lookout shouted, Day after day, my lord, I stand on the watchtower. Every night I stay at my post. Look, here comes a man in a chariot with a team of horses. And he gives back the answer. Babylon has fallen, has fallen. All the images of its gods lie shattered on the ground. My people who are crushed on the threshing floor, I tell you what I have heard from the Lord Almighty, from the God of Israel. Now, your headings in your Bibles probably say a prophecy against Babylon or fallen, fallen is Babylon. And, you recognize that fallen, fallen is Babylon the Great from the book of Revelation. So you're probably more familiar with it there. It's also said in another context in Jeremiah. But this prophecy is about the fall of Babylon. And it is important to think through which particular fall of Babylon is being spoken of here so that you can have a better understanding of it. I want to uh, just point out from what we just read that the response to the fall of Babylon is sorrow in this passage. If you look at the very last line right after the watchman gives the announcement in verse 9, and going to the ESV now, just reading that so you can get kind of the difference here. Verse 9, behold, here come riders, horsemen in pairs. And he answered, fallen, fallen is Babylon, and all the carved images of her gods he has shattered to the ground. And then the response of the prophet, Isaiah. Oh, my threshed and winnowed one, what I've heard from the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, I announce to you. This is not a good or a welcome message that he's announcing. He's talking to them as if they're, beaten down, and that this is not good news. Uh, so this is not the fall of Babylon at the end of the exile. This is another fall of Babylon. So I want to just obviously if it was the fall of Babylon at the end of the exile, there would be rejoicing, right? Um, and if it was the fall of Babylon as spoken of in the book of Revelation, there would be rejoicing because in the book of Revelation that's followed by rejoicing by God's people. But here God's people are spoken to tenderly, almost with pity about this. And so this is not the same fall. So I just wanted to make that point right up front and then we're going to kind of look at the uh, historical setting, and that will help us discern what's going on here. And if you've looked at my notes and read through them, then you already know what's going on, but it's still good to get the information, look at the setting in the Bible and not just, certainly not my notes, right? So we need to look at the setting, and that the setting is that right after Hezekiah receives the Babylonian envoys, which is spoken of in a couple of places. It's in 2 Kings 20:12-21. Hezekiah had fallen sick, and then miraculously the Lord had healed him and he had recovered. And uh, political leaders from around the area used that as an opportunity to send gifts to Hezekiah, not because they thought Hezekiah was such a great guy, but because they wanted him on their side, or they wanted him to agree to some proposal that they brought to him, right? And so the acceptance of gifts from a another political party uh, is going to is usually signifies the acceptance of the terms of those gifts, right? Nothing's ever given as just a, oh, we really like you. Here you go. We're happy you're alive. Um, so so Hezekiah is sick. He's recovered miraculously, and then it picks up in verse 12 here, 2 Kings 20. At that time, Merodach Baladan he's going to be an important guy. So we want to remember that easy to remember name there. Merodach Baladan, the son of Baladan, king of Babylon, sent envoys with letters and a present to Hezekiah, for he heard that Hezekiah had been sick. And Hezekiah welcomed them, and he showed them all the treasure house, the silver, the gold, the spices, the precious oil, his armory, all that was found in his storehouses. There was nothing in his house or in all his realm that Hezekiah did not show them. Then Isaiah the prophet came to King Hezekiah and said to him, "What did these men say, and from where did they come to you?" Hezekiah said, "They have come from a far country, from Babylon." And he said, "What have they seen in your house?" Hezekiah answered, "They have seen all that is in my house. There is nothing in my storehouse that I did not show them." Then Isaiah said to Hezekiah, "Hear the word of the Lord. Behold, the days are coming when all that is in your house and that which your fathers have stored up till this day shall be carried to Babylon. Nothing shall be left, says the Lord. And some of your sons who will come from you, whom you will father, shall be taken away, and they shall be eunuchs in the palace of the king of Babylon." Then Hezekiah said to Isaiah, "The word of the Lord that you have spoken is good." For he thought, why not, if there will be peace and security in my days? Here we get to see how wonderful a guy Hezekiah actually was. The rest of the deeds of Hezekiah and all his might, and how he made a pool and the conduit and brought water into the city, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the Kings of Judah? And Hezekiah slept with his fathers, and Manasseh his son reigned in his place. So this tells the account of the envoys coming from Babylon, from Merodach Baladan, the king of Babylon, sent these envoys with a gift to Hezekiah. The gift is received. The envoys are treated like royalty and shown everything in all of the wealth of Judah, all the wealth and all the strength of Judah. And the reason this occurs is because what we think is happening here. We know what's going on historically from historical records. What's going on historically, these envoys of Babylon, they're already in an alliance with Media and Elam, Syria, Media and Syria, against Assyria. So they're already aligned against Assyria with Media and Elam, who are mentioned in our passage that we read earlier. And we'll see it again when we go back. And they've come to get Hezekiah to join them. And Hezekiah joins them. This is the significance of him receiving their gift and showing them everything, is he joins them in the alliance against Babylon. I'm sorry, he joins them in the alliance against Assyria. So he's joining Babylon, which is the head of this coalition. Babylon, Media, Syria. Hezekiah now joins in with them. And so Hezekiah is putting his faith, his hope for the future in this alliance, principally led by Babylon. And this is why he gets rebuked by Isaiah. Isaiah treats this as an act of apostasy. It's an act of a complete lack of faith. And Hezekiah, you can tell by his response to Isaiah, where he goes, "Oh, that's okay. Yeah, yeah, judge my kids. I don't care." Um, you know that he's not thinking like a king who is a good king before the Lord. He is something's going on with Hezekiah here. He's making a bad decision. He's acting like Ahaz, the previous bad king that was so focused on. And he's trying to form a political alliance which will save him from the threat of Assyria. But what actually is going to happen because of his political alliance is Isaiah says this is going to result in the exile. This will result in the exile. And so this is kind of the background here to Babylon and the relationship and what's in the immediate background of Isaiah 21. This is so important that it's also mentioned in Isaiah 39, and we'll read that. It's almost identical word for word. I'm going to read it in the NIV so we can see a little bit more difference. But so at that time, Marduk-Baladan, the son of Baladan, the king of Babylon, sent Hezekiah letters and a gift because he had heard of his illness and recovery. And Hezekiah received the envoys gladly and showed them what was in his storehouses: silver, the gold, the spices, the fine olive oil, his entire armory, and everything found among his treasures. There was nothing in his palace or in all his kingdom that Hezekiah did not show them. He's not doing this because he's happy to see them, or he's kind of boasting. He's kind of saying, "Yeah, we'll join your alliance, and look what we can bring to the table. Look at our armory. Look at our wealth." um, Then Isaiah the prophet went to King Hezekiah and asked, "What did these men say, and where did they come from?" "From a distant land," Hezekiah replied. "They came to me from Babylon." Prophet asked, "What did they see in your palace?" "They saw everything in my palace," Hezekiah said. "There was nothing among my treasures that I did not show them." Then Isaiah said to Hezekiah, "Hear the word of the Lord Almighty. The time will surely come when everything in your palace and all that your predecessors have stored up until this day will be carried off to Babylon." He's just made an alliance with Babylon. He's saying that alliance is going to be broken. Babylon is going to betray you, or is going to become your enemy, and they will be your downfall. They'll be the downfall of the kingdom, right? Saying you're trusting in them. The thing you're trusting in is actually going to be the one that carries you off. um, Nothing will be left, says the Lord. Verse 7, "And some of your descendants, your own flesh and blood, who will be born to you, will be taken away, and they will become eunuchs in the palace of the king of Babylon." "The word of the Lord you have spoken is good," Hezekiah replied, for he thought there would be peace and security in my lifetime. So he doesn't come off looking really good here. Usually our impression of Hezekiah is he's a really good king. This is a real bad episode in, in Hezekiah. 2 Chronicles 32:31 says this. It's giving a summation in this point of Second Chronicles of Hezekiah's life. And it says, "And so in the matter of the envoys of the princes of Babylon who had been sent to him to inquire about the sign that had been done in the land," that is, he was healed. "In regard to that matter, God left him to himself in order to test him and to know all that was in his heart." So this is the explanation for why Hezekiah is acting out of character, right? He's acting out of character because he's showing what he really is without the Spirit of God controlling him and directing him. And we're all the same, right? We're all the same like that, selfish and stupid and uncaring. um, so the background here, as I said, the setting is Hezekiah has received these Babylonian envoys and joined this coalition. And Assyria, the other thing that's happening is Assyria is marching through the Middle East, conquering cities and lands. And that's why this coalition has been formed. And what should Hezekiah really have done? Shouldn't he should have trusted the Lord. That's been the consistent message in Isaiah to the Judean kings. Stop trusting in horses and powers in other countries. Trust in the Lord. And even Hezekiah, the best king of this period, succumbs to the temptation, the fear, that causes him to trust in horses and chariots and shields and spears, right? So I need to say something. We need to move into the next kind of section and say something about the way the book of Isaiah is arranged, because there's something about the arrangement that is confusing on the surface level that I need to talk about. There's so Isaiah is generally looked at as two major sections with a historical interlude in the middle. So we're in the first major section, which are basically the Assyrian dominance is being talked about, and there are prophecies about the coming Babylonian exile. And that generally it's like chapters 1 to 39 is thought to fall into that section, in chapter 40. After it falls into the second section, which is more about deliverance from Babylon, the great restoration that the Lord will bring, the coming of the Messiah. So it's basically darkness in the first part of the book, light in the second part. You can divide it any way you want. Think about it those ways. In between those two sections, there's a historical interlude. And I said generally we think of the sections as 1 through 39 and 40 to 66, but the historical interlude actually is 36 to 39, 4 chapters. 36, 37 are about one incident, 38, 39 about another incident. 36 and 37 take place in 701 BC. They're about the invasion or the siege against Jerusalem. The invasion never actually happened, but the siege against Jerusalem by Sennacherib of Assyria, and how we all remember this, right? That Sennacherib said, your God's not powerful. I've taken over all these other countries. Their gods couldn't stop me. Your God's going to be just the same. Uh, he wrote letters to Hezekiah. Hezekiah took one of the letters into the temple, spread it out before God, and said, look at this, what are we going to do about this? Hezekiah calls for Isaiah. Isaiah says, trust the Lord. Hezekiah trusts the Lord, tells all the people to trust the Lord, and the Lord sends an angel, and the angel of the Lord kills 185,000 Assyrian soldiers in one night, and the Assyrian army all leaves. That's chapters 36 and 37. In 38 and 39, talks about Hezekiah's illness, and we read some of this. The Babylonian envoys, Isaiah condemns Hezekiah as being unfaithful, and Isaiah prophesies the coming Babylonian exile. The thing that we want to understand is that these sections, these two incidents, the siege of Jerusalem and Hezekiah's illness and the aftermath, they're not in chronological order. The chronological order is illness first, siege second. But the way that they are presented to us in Isaiah is siege first, illness second. So, or to talk about it in terms of Hezekiah's responses, in the siege, Hezekiah responds with faith. And the way it's given in Isaiah is that if we're reading it chronologically, which is the wrong way to read it, but he presents it faith first, apostasy second. But actually, historically, what happens is apostasy is first, and then faith. So it's the opposite of the Solomon thing. Solomon apostatized at the end and doesn't look like he probably recovered, but we don't know about that with any definitive statement. But Hezekiah loses faith and then recovers, or the Lord recovers him. The reason that these are not in chronological order is because these sections are thematically related to the subjects of, say, the first part of Isaiah is about the Assyrian dominance and the trouble that they are. And so that links with Sennacherib's siege of Jerusalem, the Assyrian siege of Jerusalem that God turns away. And so that's presented at the end of the Assyrian section. And then after the Assyrian section, the next part of Isaiah is about Babylon and how the people will be delivered. And that starts with the envoys from Babylon coming to Hezekiah. So they're thematically related, not it's not telling a chronological story. So you need to understand that too. So the reason we don't think that these are in chronological order is because if you look at Isaiah 38:1, which I think we read, oh, we didn't read that. We should look at that. Isaiah 38:1. Um, let's see. Somebody have that?
Yes,
What does it say? Please.
this is from the NAS. It has excuse me, Isaiah 38 verse 1. In those days, Hezekiah became mortally ill, and Isaiah the prophet, the son of Amos, came to him and said to him, "Thus says the Lord, set your house in order, for you shall die and not live."
Thank you. I
You're welcome.
wish I knew if that was the right verse. It doesn't seem like it is. Let's see. Can you read verse 4 through 6? 4 through
Yes.
6.
Again, this is Isaiah 38, verses 4 through 6 in the NAS. Verse 4, then the word of the Lord came to Isaiah, saying, "Go and say to Hezekiah, thus says the Lord, the God of your father David, I have heard your prayer. I have seen your tears. Behold, I will add 15 years to your life, and I will deliver you and this city from the hand of the king of Assyria, and I will defend this city."
Thank you. Yeah, that's actually the
You're
passage I was
welcome.
looking for.
Okay.
So I was looking for that particular passage because it says that the siege of Jerusalem is in the future. Yeah, it says right there in verse 6, I'll deliver you and this city out of the hand of the king of Assyria. That's referring to the siege of Jerusalem in 701, which is in chapter 36 and 37. So 36 and 37 is about the siege of Jerusalem. 38 says that siege is in the future. So 38 is before 36 and 37. You have the same type of thing we had read that Hezekiah shows the envoys his vast riches, right, and the temple and all of that. Um, if you look at 2 Kings 18:14 to 16, I think they have that. Says, and Hezekiah, king of Judah, sent to the king of Assyria at Lachish, saying, I have done wrong, withdraw from me. Whatever you impose on me, I will bear. And the king of Assyria required of Hezekiah, king of Judah, 300 talents of silver and 30 talents of gold. And Hezekiah gave him all the silver that was found in the house of the Lord and in the treasuries of the king's house. And at that time, Hezekiah stripped the gold from the doors of the temple of the Lord and from the doorposts that Hezekiah, the king of Judah, had overlaid, and he gave it to the king of Assyria. Well, if he'd given away all of his riches, then he couldn't have shown them to the Babylonians. So, and this is a parallel passage with Isaiah 36. So, Isaiah 36, everything's stripped, and that anyway, anyway, um, yeah. If Hezekiah had been paying heavy tribute to Assyria, there wouldn't have been anything to show to the Babylonian envoys. So, so that's the point there. So anyway, those things are out of order, and so if I bring it up, if you're trying to think through what's going on in Isaiah and what's the chronology here, a lot of us want to put things in order chronologically. So what's happening in chapter 21 is aligned with Hezekiah's illness, which is after the siege of Jerusalem. Hmm. Yeah, I think I said that right. Yeah. Um, so on the outline, I have a short timeline of the events related to understanding Isaiah 21, 1 through 10. I'm going to go through those with a little more detail. Um, so in 722, Samaria falls to Assyria. Assyria is making its way through this part of the world, and Israel is destroyed. The people are relocated in 722 by Assyria, end of that kingdom. Also in 722, um, you thought Merodach Baladan was bad, but his actual name is Marduk Apple Adina um, of Babylon. So Merodach Baladan successfully revolts against Assyria and is crowned king of Babylon. He continues as king for 12 years. He's not dethroned by Assyria until sometime in 710. So for 12 years, Merodach Baladan is king of Babylon. And the whole time, this whole 12 years, he's a continual thorn in the side of Assyria, doing like guerrilla warfare and picking at them and all kinds of stuff. In Assyria, we have documents from this period of time. They consider him to be like terrorist number one. He's the terrorist in the land, and they're continually trying to capture him or defeat him. And they finally drive him out of Babylon. They don't kill him, but they drive him out of Babylon in 710. In 703, Merodach Baladan returns to Babylon, conquers it again, and reigns as king again. Because this guy just won't go away. He's a problem. And in 703, Hezekiah becomes sick, and the Lord heals him. This is in Isaiah 38. It's around the same time that Merodach Baladan becomes king of Babylon again, probably shortly just after that. Hezekiah recovers in around 702. Around that time, Merodach Baladan, attempting to build this alliance, this anti-Assyrian coalition, sends envoys to Hezekiah. We read about that, asking him to join with Babylon in resistance to Assyria. And all the while he stresses, Assyrian treachery. This was his tendency when doing negotiations. He'd go, why would you want to join with them? Why would you want to capitulate? Because these guys, you can't trust them. And as it turns out, he's right. But I would submit here that you probably can't trust any politician. Just putting it out there. Um, I know it's a shocking thought, but so Hezekiah shows Babylon its treasures and his armory, and as we know historically, Elam, which is Persia, and Media are already in the anti-Assyrian League, and we read a little bit about that, but we'll see them in chapter 21 of Isaiah again. In 702, just shortly after Judah joins Babylon, Merodach Baladan is again defeated by Assyria. This is what Isaiah 21 is about. This defeat of Babylon by Assyria right after Judah had joined them in this alliance. Imagine the devastating, crushing blow to the hopes of the people of Judah that this would be. The nemesis of Assyria is back. He's the real problem. He's the real power here. We can join him. He will save us. And they wait for news from the watchman on the wall of Assyria's defeat, and yet what they get is Babylon has fallen. It's everything they hoped for is not going to happen. That's the thing. So in 701, after Assyria defeats Babylon, in 701, 1 year later, the Assyrian king invades Judah, conquers the fortified cities, and demands and receives heavy tribute from Hezekiah, who even strips the temple of its gold to pay up. We read about that. Still in 701, not content with the tribute already given, the Assyrian king again threatens Jerusalem unless Hezekiah pays more. Here's the treachery, right? He said, pay up and I'll leave you alone. He paid up, and the king said, oh, wait, you still got more left. Give me more. So Hezekiah at that point sends for Isaiah, and the Assyrian king sends a letter belittling the Lord and threatening Hezekiah and Jerusalem and all its people, and Hezekiah responds in faith. This is a turnaround for Hezekiah. And then the Assyrian siege is repelled. by the angel of the Lord. After that, from 701 to 689, successors of Merodach Baladan continually seek to overthrow Assyria. They just can't stamp this guy's successors out. They're finally in 689, Assyria succeeds in destroying Babylon, but it still comes back in 586. 100 years later, Babylon is the one who conquers Judah. Just in fulfillment of Isaiah's prophecy, this must have looked like a prophecy that would never happen, right? Babylon just it's getting reduced, finally destroyed in 689. But in 586, it's the world power. And Babylon takes the Jewish people into exile. And then in 539, Babylon is conquered by the coalition of the Medes and the Persians. The Medes, there's political alliances, just shifting all over the place. Medes and Persians led by Cyrus the Great. So that's kind of the timeline. So what's the significant thing here is that Merodach Baladan, who's just recently regained the Babylonian throne and looks like he's going to be possibly successful in being such a problem that Assyria won't be able to harass Judah, he gets defeated by Assyria. And that wouldn't be such a bad thing, except that Judah had got into bed with him and said, "You're our hope," to which Isaiah rightly said, "You're not trusting God. And because you're not trusting God, God will strip away your hope and use the thing you trust in to judge you," which is typical, right? It's a typical thing we see in Isaiah. So now we can reread uh, Isaiah 21, 1 through 10, and kind of talk through that. So anybody have any questions or thoughts about anything so far? Makes
No.
sense? Okay.
Yes.
All right. So the oracle concerning the wilderness of the sea, this is the ESV, wilderness of the sea. Different Bible versions have different things there. NIV had desert by the sea. The consensus is this just means the area of the Persian Gulf. It's this and there's an oracle in chapter 22 called the Valley of Vision. These are the only two oracles that don't have specific names like Babylon or Tyre or Phoenicia or something like that, right? This is more of a figurative, descriptive type of name. So the oracle concerning the wilderness of the sea. And when you read through it, you see it's about the fall of Babylon, but the wilderness of the sea is just the area there. So it goes on, starts out as the wilderness, or as the whirlwinds in the Negev sweep on, it comes from the wilderness, from a terrible land. NIV has, like whirlwinds sweeping through the southland, an invader comes from the desert, from the land of terror. I think that's a little more explanatory, right? What's happening is Assyria is coming into vision, right? Into the actual people can stand on the wall of Jerusalem and see Assyria and the Assyrian army, big dust clouds and lots of shouting, and here they come, and this should be a cause for worry, right? Verse 2: a stern vision has told me, the traitor betrays and the destroyer destroys. The traitor is Assyria. I already pointed that out. They make a deal with Hezekiah and then they break it and demand more. Hezekiah is also the traitor. Hezekiah is the traitor to all the people of God and to his faith. He doesn't come out looking good. He apostatized. Says the destroyer destroys. That's Assyria. Assyria is coming. Get up or go up, Elam. Lay siege, O Media. All the signs she has caused, I bring to an end. This is the people of Judah urging on the people they just joined an alliance with to go out there and fight against the threat. Get up, O Elam. Go up, O Media. End this threat, right? Isaiah responds, therefore my loins are filled with anguish. Pangs have seized me like the pangs of a woman in labor. I am bowed down so that I cannot hear. I am dismayed so that I cannot see. My heart staggers. Horror has appalled me. The twilight I longed for has been turned for me into trembling. This is Isaiah responding to the response of the people to the threat. The response should have been faith. The response is apostasy. It should have been fidelity to the Lord, but it is idolatry. That's what the response is. And Isaiah knows what this is going to end in. This will end in exile. And so he is horrified, right? And this is what he's expressing. He's horrified. He's at what's going on because he sees the most important moving part in this. He sees Hezekiah's defection. Hezekiah defects, and he sees the consequences of what that will be. The nation itself will be like Hezekiah, will descend into apostasy and then destruction and then exile. Verse 5, talking about other people now. They prepare the table, they spread the rugs, they eat, they drink. This is the Judean people. This is the Judean people. They're not worried. They, instead of being horrified at what's going on, they're, I mean, the battle hasn't happened yet, right? Babylon is still Babylon, and Syria is on the way in, and nothing's happened except Isaiah knows how it turns out, and he's horrified. He's horrified at the breach of faith that's happened here. But the people are confident, right? They're pictured as setting up a table and having a feast, right? They're partying. And why are they partying? Because they are thinking of the princes of Babylon getting ready to go to battle for them. They're thinking of Media and Elam, right? End of verse 5, arise, O princes, oil the shield. They're saying, we struck a deal. These guys are all getting ready to fight for us. And they're just relaxed, eating and drinking. So there's a contrast between, Isaiah and the other people. That would be not the righteous people. In 7 through 10, or 6 through 10, the watchman. For thus the Lord said to me, go set a watchman, let him announce what he sees. This is why Isaiah is so distressed, because he knows the outcome here. When he sees riders, horsemen in pairs, riders on donkeys, riders on camels, let him listen diligently, very diligently. Then he who saw cried out, upon a watchtower I stand, O Lord, continually by day, and at my post I am stationed whole nights. And behold, here come riders, horsemen in pairs. And he answered, fallen is Babylon. And all the carved images of her gods he has shattered to the ground. This is the terrible news. This is I mean, it doesn't make any difference in the it's only terrible because they put their trust in it. I guess that's what I mean to say. They trust in Babylon. This is devastating. They had expected, they were so calm and partying because they got Babylon on their side, and now Babylon is gone. That hope is dashed. And what does that mean? Well, that means that Assyria is coming, and there's really nobody that can stop them. And this leads into the siege, 701. Only the Lord can stop them. The Lord does stop them. But that doesn't prevent the exile, right? There's the short-term consequence, which is Assyria is unstoppable. There's the long-term consequence, which is the exile. And so both of these are in mind here. There's an indictment against Judah in verse 9. Fallen is Babylon, and all the carved images of her gods he has shattered to the ground. When they trust in Babylon, they trust in Babylon's gods. They're idolaters, right? They might not worship those gods by name or anything else, but when you trust in somebody other than the Lord, you're trusting in what they trust in for their strength.
Mm.
And the Lord is saying through this, you're all idolaters and you're going to get what idolaters get. And that's why in verse 10, there's this kind of tender address from Isaiah. Oh, my threshed and winnowed one, what I've heard from the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, I announce to you. There's it's a sadness, almost a reluctance to even give the message, right? It's just, oh, you know, I hate to say this, but this is going to really be bad for you. Yeah. Um, so that's what's going on in those 10 verses. I think there's things we can learn about. I was trying to think of what would be possible titles. Like, how would I title this? What would you title this chapter? And, fallen is Babylon is not a good title. It doesn't convey any meaning. It just has a phrase. What would you How would you summarize it in like a sentence?
My Bible says God commands that Babylon be taken. It doesn't say destroyed. It doesn't say anything to be taken. Just take it. And it doesn't infer anything other than just taken. Because there are a lot of symptom words here, like horror and overwhelming and trembling and anguish, destroy. That's what I'm thinking. What do you think?
Yeah, no, there's a lot more there than just the fall of Babylon is obviously key to what's going on, but I think it's the alliance that is the real issue, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I had my first thought of a title was Another Failed Alliance. I mean, we've just seen a whole series of failed alliances, right? Here's another one.
Right.
And then keying off that word another, I thought, here's another fine mess you've gotten us into, speaking to Hezekiah, right?
A fine mess for sure.
Yeah. Or, there's a way that seems right to a man, but in the end it results in exile, death.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or maybe Isaiah or Hezekiah was like, man, it seemed like such a good idea at the time. You we also had the Lord strips away hope. He strips away all hope in temporary things, all hope in temporary man-made things. Mom.
When was this written in relationship to when it actually happened?
Probably really soon before it. It's not dated.
Because they
Sometime
were
between.
contemporary, right? Isaiah and
Yeah,
Hezekiah.
yeah, yeah. They were.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll share something that I've been told. Well, the Babylon is falling. I've been told that first Babylon is falling is when it initially fell to the Assyrians, and then the second one is when it fell to the Persians.
Right. Yeah, that's
right.
true.
Okay.
That's true.
Okay.
And then you have the third one in Revelation. So Babylon becomes a
Right.
symbol or is a symbol. Babylon
Right.
is not
Right.
only Babylon, but a symbol for all of the anti-Christ type of organizations and people in the world. Okay. Well, I have a couple of verses. Anybody else have any thoughts on maybe a summary, how you would title it, summarize it? Did anybody have a favorite of the ones that I wrote down?
I like it. Seemed like such a good idea at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Ditto. Good one, Jane. Good one, Chuck. Yeah. Ditto.
Well,
Yeah.
Chuck, another thing too, on verse 10, I heard once that this threshing of grain was representing Babylon's oppression of Israel, but that we're going to get a resulting grain, which will be Israel's deliverance by God. Have you heard that?
No, I haven't. And in this passage, the Babylon is not the one threshing. Babylon is the friend of Judah in this
Mm-hmm.
passage. So they're not the one being used by God to winnow them or separate the wheat from the chaff, which is the threshing image. If we need to assign the threshing to anybody, it would be Assyria in this passage.
Assyria. Okay.
But I think I don't think that the point of the passage really is to try to name the thresher, but just to say God's people have been beaten like wheat when it's threshed. They're just beaten down by everything that's been happening, and that this is not the point of verse 10 is this alliance is not going to bring relief from the beating down. You're still, it's not going to save you. You made an alliance. It's unfaithful, and it will result in more pain. So, I mean, that's not all conveyed in verse 10, but that is in the setting. That's the threshing, is just to say you're weary, you've been beaten down, you're weary and hurt, and under the power of foreign nations, and they're oppressing you. It doesn't really matter which foreign nations it is, but at this time period, it's Syria. And you're looking for relief from your beating down, but making an alliance with Babylon is not going to bring that relief. You're still beaten down, which is why after the fall of Babylon, they're addressed as people who are beaten down, even though Babylon's not doing the beating.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So, all right. So, I was thinking of Hezekiah, and I have just a couple of verses. James 1:8. If you're looking at the outline, I have them printed there. James 1:8. The double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. This is Hezekiah. This is every one of us. And when the Lord takes his hand away from us and says, "Go ahead and think unsanctified thoughts. Let's see what that looks like. Let's see what you're really like inside." And he knows. We don't. We forget. We think, look how much advancement I've made, but it's the Spirit of God preventing us from being apostate. That's actually going on. That should make us thankful, right? Thankful
Amen.
and dependent. We should be dependent on God. Hosea 7, verse 9, the second part of that. So I mentioned earlier Hezekiah was acting like Ahab, earlier apostate Ahab. And Isaiah had said to Ahab in a similar situation when Ahab was worried about his coalition and Assyria, same type of thing, that Isaiah had said to him, if you're not firm in your faith, you will not be firm at all. And this is certainly true of not just Ahab, but Hezekiah in this passage. And it's true for everybody. They're not firm in their faith. They're not firm. It's nearly like that saying, I think it was Martin Luther King, if a man won't stand for something, he'll fall for anything. It's similar to that, but it's more direct. The thing you need to stand on is faith. You need to trust in the Lord. That's what Jehoshaphat, the king of Judah, said in 2 Chronicles 20:20. He said to his army in a situation where they were facing an oncoming opposition army. He said, believe in the Lord your God and you will be established. Believe his prophets and you will succeed. He doesn't say sharpen your swords, things like that. He says, be faithful. Um, James 4:8, draw near to God, he will draw near to you. Cleanse your hands, you sinners. Purify your hearts, you double-minded. That's what Hezekiah does in the next big incident, which is the siege. He responds in faith, purifies his heart. A double-minded man becomes a single-minded man again. Uh, so, so I think this incident with Hezekiah tells us, several things. One is, like I've already mentioned, the Lord prevents us from apostatizing by his Spirit, that in our natural condition we would disbelieve him and run for idols, for help. And this is something to be thankful for and to always remind ourselves and lean with dependence upon him and not be double-minded and trust him and trust something else another day, not back and forth, but trust him every day and do what, Joseph had said, believe the Lord, believe what he has said. It is his word that is our foundation, his word that grounds us. And if we're not firm in the faith that we have in the Lord, the faith that he gives us, there is no stability. That's basically when Jesus talks in Matthew 7 about the house built on sand and on rock. It's just a illustration of Isaiah 7:9. If you're not firm in faith, you'll not be firm at all. So I think there's probably other things that we can get out of this, but those were my main couple of takeaways. Does anybody have anything else you would like to add to that?
No.
Mm-mm. No.
Okay. All right. I'm going to turn off the recording.